Biohazard warning. Entering contaminated zone. Transmissions jammed. Proximity coverage only. Backup activated. System rebooted.
What's up, nation? This is your boy Sly here, and I'm back once again to drop you guys all some helpful hits on how to get your game to the max while playing the Division. Now, I'm always trying to help you all reach your highest potential possible with minimal effort, and most of the times I create videos based off of everyday questions that I get from talking to players just like you and me. So in this update, I'm going to show you guys how you can reach your maximum DPS, health, tech, whatever you want to shoot for, and reach stats like these without scouring YouTube looking for cheeses, spending days in the dark zone, or finding the right group of agents in the incursion to help you pull through it. You honestly probably already have the potential to get your damage and health to over 100,000, maybe even 2, while still keeping your skills alive. And you don't have to switch out anything, so first and foremost, this will depend on your current gear. But if you're a week 1 player, then you probably already have some high-end pieces from before the incursion update, which is more than likely going to be at 182 gear score. And if you spent some time in the DZ, you know that 182 is the better level, considering that the 163s drop everywhere and have lower stats. Now, even if you don't have the original high ends, your gear score is 163. It's no big deal. You can still get great DPS and health, so don't freak out about it. I actually used a 163 gear score chest piece for like weeks up until like recently, and I could easily hit 100k in both DPS and health. This time, and these days, 100k is not that big of a deal anymore, but still, it still gets you into the action. So don't think because you aren't fitted out with all great green gear that you cannot become a threat. You most definitely can. So now let's dive in, and I'll show you the easiest way to max your potential. So first and foremost, start extracting all of your mods. Performance, stamina, firearms, electronics, whatever. After your DZ run is complete, keep the top 4 of whatever you need to get the build you are looking for. Try to keep the highest of each category and dismantle the rest for parts. Mods are completely underappreciated and underutilized in the Division, and they are very, very helpful component of high-end gear. Now the second is about your gear. Everyone wants to get a 200 plus gear score, but it doesn't work out like that. Start small and you will get there, but be the best that you can be at all times. Now, as probably most of you have already noticed, some gear sets drastically drop your DPS and health in return for some of these talents. So start thinking of what kind of setup you are ultimately going to look for. Do you want to set up like I'm shooting for, which is like 4 strikers, 2 sentries, maybe 2 high-level golds and 4 sentries? The choice is ultimately yours, and unfortunately, I don't have enough of the sets to give you a complete and honest opinion on it right now. But when I do, you guys will definitely know. So start with that and what you want in mind. Equip your best gear in terms of stats and talents, and try to find the gear with the most mod slots that you can find. And with that selected, put them on and let's head upstairs. Alright, well now that Phoenix credits are no longer being sucked away every time you use the recalibration center, it is a much easier process to try to max out your characters. I used to have upwards of 3 million credits with nothing to spend on, but now there is a worthy cause to use them, and you can actually see a difference in the process. So let's go ahead and talk about pumping up your stats. Now, every armor category will have their maximum threshold for firearms, stamina, and electronics. Now, obviously, the higher the gear score, the higher your stats can be. I'm going to leave purples out of this because this should really be an end-game tweak, not a mid-game thing to worry about. So, with high-end gear, the lowest gear score level is 163. Every piece of gear can drop firearms, stamina, or electronics from around 420 to 514. For high-ends that are in the 182 range, you can be anywhere from 470 to 575. The next are the low-end gear score sets that drop at 191 and can drop from anywhere from 441 to 540. Now notice how gold gear at 182 gear score can roll higher than gear sets, which technically are supposed to be a level above. And once again, it's because of the talents that they come with, and they're trying to level them out. Now, there are a few other levels, but basically how it goes, the higher the gear score, the higher your stats can potentially be. Notice how I say potentially. Now imagine for a second that your gear score is 163 and you find an awesome 182 high-end drop, but it actually drops your DPS, even though its level is above you and it has awesome talents. Hopefully you didn't throw it away, because even though it's not currently higher than what you have, it has the potential to be, and that is what counts. Moral of the story: if you find anything higher than what you're wearing, extract it and look at it in depth later to see if you can fix it, and that is exactly what we're about to go do. Because until you take a deep look at what you're wearing, you're probably not using your gear to its full potential. Alright guys, so what you're trying to do is unlock your highest possible stat in each of your pieces of armor. So like I said earlier, throw on your current setup which you like to use, and then all you have to do is re-roll your stats on each piece. For instance, let's take a look at my mask and use it as an example. My stats are close to what I want. I need more health, but I'll get it with time, and besides, I've jumbled up a lot of things here recently to see if I could go over 200,000 DPS, but normally I shoot for about 150,000 DPS and 100k health. Right now, I'm giving the high DPS a trial run, so that's what I'll work with right now. Alright guys, so what you need to look for here is what your individual gear stats are at their absolute highest possible. Now for instance, when I click on this mask, it will show you everything that you can re-roll. And like I said earlier, high ends that have a gear score of 182 can roll between 470 and 575 firearms, stamina, or electronics. So depending on your currently equipped gear, the highest number is what you're going to try to get closest to. Now for my current setup, we're looking to get as close as possible to 575, or whatever your gear piece will allow on all of your individual items. Now make sure your talents are what you want, because once you roll an item, you can only go back to what you rolled the very first time. You cannot roll for different talents and other options multiple times. So choose wisely. Once you select it, you are stuck in that category. So looking at this mask, I'm at 553 firearms, but I can go up to 575. Now if you're this close, I really wouldn't worry about it, but for demonstration, let's try to get it as high as possible. So to show you how this works, remember that I'm at 185,000 DPS right now. Let's go back to the mask and see if we can get it higher. By the way, that little white box with a triangle on it on the left hand side is the item you are currently wearing, basically what's equipped. That is what you want to roll because it is the best one you have, if you equip the best one like I asked earlier. Alright, so let's roll it. Alright, well I can choose to bump it up to 566, which is definitely higher, or I can change it to electronics or stamina. Now since this is your current setup and you like it, but you just want a little higher DPS and health, then that pretty much means that your DPS to health ratio is also pretty decent and you want to keep it that way. You just want a little more health and higher stopping power. So don't change these out to another category, as this will completely ruin everything. Whatever the gear piece has right now is what you want to stick to. If it originally had firearms, then you want to stick with firearms. Stamina, then stay stamina. Only change the numbers and only if they go higher. So in this case, I can go up a little bit. But if by chance you got turreted on by RNG, then the very first choice at the top of your rolled options is always going to be what you had at the beginning, which you can always roll back to, which is a great option to have if you end up getting screwed up by RNG. So you can't get screwed and stuck with a lower number and less money. A lot of other reroll stations in other games roll it permanently. It's usually all or nothing, so it's great to have this option. Now to me, 566 isn't really too bad. It's pretty close to max, but if you have the money to spend, try to get it as high as possible. It can't hurt. Alright, well now let's move on down to my chest piece. As you can see, I'm currently at 531 firearms, but I can reach 575. That's a pretty big jump. So let's see what it does for me. Alright, and... damn, I got screwed this time. Well, let's go ahead and try it again. But notice that the price goes up on every consecutive roll. Well, effed again, and I'm not going to show you guys, but I unfortunately tried 6 more times and nothing went my way, which, by the way, is kind of unusual. And when I'm trying to film something, that's usually how it works. But as you can tell by looking at these others, I already tried to max these out beforehand, and they all came pretty close to max as you can get without being super picky, which, by the way, I am perfectly fine with. So after you try and max out your stats by rolling for the highest numbers on all of your gear items, take a look at how many of those most pieces of armor you have equipped and those that are capable of holding any modifications. Now these mods, they have a dual purpose. For the most part, they are used to up your stats so you can unlock various talents on weapons. But once you're in the high-end endgame area, they also start to help you in your health and damage as a result. And often, they will have added bonuses like extra health, a little more critical chance, stuff like that. What you're trying to do with modifications is to edge out the imperfections. If some of those numbers slided a little too much with damage and not a lot of health, then equip stamina mods to up your health score. If it's too little damage, try equipping all firearms mods. Now, if you got lucky and everything's equal and you're totally happy with what you have, then try to get your electronics up as high as possible with as many mods as you can get. A lot of players underestimate the power of electronics, and it never hurts to bump that up when you can do it. So from now on, every time that you make it back to the base of operations, take a look at your new modifications. Click mod on any of your armor pieces and then scroll over the new ones to see if any of them are better than what you are currently using. Like for instance here, on this chest piece, I have 118 stamina mod with 568 health. And as I scroll through, you can see here that I have one that's also 118, but it ups my DPS by almost 2,000 and I only lose like a little over 400 health. That, to me, is an acceptable trade. But then again, it all depends on what you're shooting for. I wish I could have thought to record the time when I went through all of this and did this to all of my gear and the drastic difference that it made. But as you can see here, from barely changing one armor piece and a slight upgrade to one mod, I went from a DPS of 185,000 to 187,000. And those were very, very minor adjustments. If you can see that some of your pieces can be improved by like 40 or 50, or maybe even perhaps at your bottom can improve it to like 100 on each of your gear pieces, by the time you change all 6, you will probably double what you have now, at least. And on top of that, add a little extra modifications for the icing on the cake, and you, my friend, will be the beast I always knew you could be. And guys, I'm telling you, this really does make an insane difference, but it can become quite expensive really quickly if luck isn't on your side. My best advice is to shoot for the highest possible, but don't get greedy. After a week or two of maxing out every armor piece and replacing your lower ones with new maxed out ones, you will start to understand how some people can have 200,000 DPS and 100,000 health. It will only get better the higher your gear score rises. For example, like this gear set backpack I received from the Incursion has a gear score of 214 and can go up to 604. And remember, gear sets have lower stats than straight up high ends. So imagine what a high-end gold could be dropped at that level. That would be insanity. That's what it would be dropped as. But that's about wraps it up, agents. I mean, it's not really that complicated, but it does take time and some item management. I recommend that before you start rolling everything and spending your credits, try and find your highest gear score stuff that you can get that matches up best with the talents that you want. Now, if I were you, I'd shoot for 182 gear score or higher if possible, but if 163 is all that you can manage, then that is perfectly fine. Just find the best of the best within that 163 range. But once you have your perfect setup, then go ahead and worry about rolling for max. And once you come across something better, just tweak it and the mods and make it fit your needs. But that's it, guys. Super simple, and all the god level players you encounter in the Dark Zone have done this. And if they haven't, well, it's because they spent the last week throwing millions of sticky bombs in the Incursion. But that is a completely different story. Anyway, guys, I hope this helps all of you get your characters up to the next level. With more updates in the near future, it's going to keep going up from here, so make sure you stay on top and don't get left behind. Now, if you guys have any questions, I would love to hear them. Ask in the comments below, and I'll be happy to help you out. Now, unfortunately, there is no do this simple step and be God level type of thing, but this is the best way to make use of what you have, and any great gamer became good because they could make the most of what they were familiar with. So guys, let's do the same. As always, thanks for watching, and if you want to stay up to date on everything, the Destiny, the Division, and new uploads from the Sly Nation, Twitter is the best place to do so. Follow at Sly Nation and stay current on everything gaming and Division, because I am out, guys. As always, couldn't do this without you, and this one is for you, ladies and gents. Until next time, this is your boy Sly. Done, gone, out.
Ammo inbound. Zone B secure.